we're gonna be chatting. We've got some questions compiled from you folks as well as from the forums and out and about and around, and we're gonna have a chitty chat. It's gonna be a good time. I'm pretty excited. The challenge rating sort of system, if you want to think about that from like D&D, didn't really exist in 2D20 when it first came out. That's sort of been tweaked now in the Winter of Adam book. But Justin, how have you been finding making encounters for 2D20 this season, or just in general, for any of our specials or whatever it's been, versus maybe some other games? Any tips, tricks, or things that you've encountered? Because I've definitely encountered some issues myself.
Well, first, this is like my first time DMing pretty much ever. I ran a offline game that we called Fallout Underdark, which was like wildly punishing, like crazy dark.
It was.
And I learned a lot of lessons from that. It's about, for me at least, in this story, it's about telling the story. So, like, I know my character can take down a Deathclaw, but there's a narrative that I want to tell about it. Not necessarily worrying about the numbers so much. Spoilers, to pull back the curtain. I have fudged some stuff a little bit sometimes, because obviously no one likes it when you wipe the party, but you want to keep it like difficult for them. So I haven't like gone over the top where I've fucking Deus Ex Machina'd the whole thing. But it's more for me about like reading like the situation. Like Ryan and I have done a lot of improv growing up in theater and stuff. Like it's more about reading the situation, kind of like being dynamic with it. If you
say read the room.
Yeah, read the room. If you've got a super big bad guy with like 3 hit points left and there's a whole turn to go through before he gets back, like if the story says somebody did something cool and you have a rule of cool to justify it, like just fucking kill him. Like everyone likes a big win.
Yep.
You don't need to like be a rules lawyer about it. I think it's more about empowering your players to like feel like heroic, feel good. Or if they do something dipshitty, like for example, walking into the middle of a fucking camp who is trying to kidnap you because that was their plan.
Sure.
You go, all right.
Yes.
Like, you didn't fucking put any like forethought into this, so you're captured. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's more, my answer is more about the narrative more than the rules. But obviously, like, I base my encounters on their player level, and I've been a lifelong player of Fallout, so like I know that they're not going to take down a hive of Deathclaws, but maybe one is manageable, you know. So like you kind of, it's more contextual than anything for me.
I think that like leans into kind of perfectly where my head was at on that too, because like definitely on the narrative side of things. I mean, for our program in particular, we're telling a story too, right? Like it's a little bit different than if you were around, just having a casual table, with your Sunday night gaming buddies, right? You might be a little bit more inclined to punish and reward, right? Which I think is a cool, an interesting example that you brought up there was when we walked into the camp, right? And got ourselves completely sidelined and
which, by the way,
which
sorry, not to interrupt. I was off cans for that, and you just like you decided that was your plan, which I loved, and I was like, okay, but I'm going to use this now. Sorry.
And I think which is perfect, which is like it goes into planning those encounters, which goes into I think the sort of fun of the game, and which might lead us into some more questions here, is that the the actions that your players take, you need to respond to them, right? So whatever that may be, lean into it, right? Like that was the perfect example. We walked into a consequence, so run with the consequence, right? And it made for an interesting story. And I think that's what I enjoy the most when it comes to designing encounters. To sort of get into the rules meat of that question is what makes it interesting, right? From a not just a okay, how many damage dice is this enemy dealing, and how does that scale with how much armor my players have, but how fun is it going to be, right? Like what's the X factor of this encounter, like the Yao Guai that you guys encountered in the cave system, right? Like that was by all metrics an unwinnable fight, but it was designed in the way I wanted to have you guys come across Yao Guai, but I didn't want it just to be okay. We fight Yao Guai now. Like there's got to be some sort of extra thing in there, right? So it was
some story with it. Yeah.
It was dark, and it's a blind albino Yao Guai, and it's reacting to your guys' movements, right? And it had some mechanical sort of puzzle things in there as well. So I think for me at least, beyond just how do you build a leveled encounter, how can you make it interesting, and how do you spice it up? And then at the end of the day, like you said, just react to what the players do. And if you're going to make a couple tweaks in the moment, so
you do it.
Maybe it has 98 hit points instead of 100 or whatever it is, right?
There are two examples in the first season that I loved about your storytelling surrounding this concept. One is the Mirelurk Queen fight, where we were on the water rig, and like it was clear if we didn't get the fuck out of there, shit would go super bad. So you kind of like told the story in the way of like get the fuck out of here. And then second, and I mean, was
the Mirelurk, was sort of secondary to what was happening in that moment, right? Of get the water and get home.
Yeah. And then the second was that comes to mind just off the top of my head was you let Yuri jury rig like a fusion cell and like whip it as a grenade.
Oh, yeah.
And you were like, okay, I'm going to let you do this because you rolled so well, but I'm never letting you do this again. Which I think is also very cool.
It was the finale.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta. That being said, to punch it over to Grant. Grant is actually our DM in a D&D game offline. So like he is also our GM. He's the GM's GM. So like how do you feel like GM. You like to how do you like to balance encounters? How do you feel about that whole system?
Design. The grand
design. So I'll try to frame it in a way so that our viewers aren't like stuck on the outside of inside jokes, which is tough. But I would say that is one thing that I probably struggle with. Of the top 10 things that I struggle with, that's one of the top 10 things. It's hard to be a DM and it's hard to be a GM because there's a story, but the beauty of these kinds of games is we're all kind of co-telling something. And I think when there's a good vibe between the story that the players want to live in and the story the GM is trying to tell, that's when the magic happens. As far as encounters, like I feel like what the GM thinks the players feel is often not what the players are feeling. So when I've run games, I've tended to have lots of monsters, high level ones, and then it's hard. But the problem with that is it's so hard that they die. Like we just had a session, there were 12 player downs in one combat encounter in a D&D.
Guess who suffered the most of those?
Yeah. So it's like, and like from my intention on the one side, it was like, okay, let's do something hard. So when they beat it, it feels satisfying. Right. But it just felt bad. So it's like, Then at the same time, there have been encounters where I thought, oh, this is so easy. These players can be bored out of their mind. They're like, it's like level 1 goblins, and they're just like killing 3 per round or whatever. It doesn't matter how many hit points they have because they're just getting knocked down.
Yeah.
But like the players also have fun doing that. So I think variety is one thing that always seems to work pretty well, is whatever you did last session, try not to just keep doing that.
Yeah, that's big, actually.
And if you're having more than like 1 or 2 players get downed, probably it's too hard. Unless that's like, I don't know. It's like, it's tough because if you're trying to push the story somewhere, you can, but like it really starts feeling bad. There's it's like a linear feeling, and then it goes exponentially worse after a point. So
yeah,
I would say I think variety and balance.
I think the biggest thing is, and it's cliche, but like the dice tell the story.
Yeah.
So like if you get bad rolls, like hopefully your players are like with it enough to be like, this isn't working out, we should run away or like reform or think outside the box. Like,
yeah,
and
the
also
great thing with this system too is that there's granularity to succeeding or failing, right? Like you can roll 2d20 and roll a critical success and a crit fail, right? So you have
something great happens, but also, oh fuck.
Yeah, it's a little, and even when, a crit is a crit, if you're trying to, talk to an eldritch god and you roll a 20, just because you roll a 20 doesn't mean you're going to fucking do it, right?
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you have the skills to do that.
Precisely, but maybe there's a granularity there, which is why I think this game is so interesting in particular, in that it gives you that ability to sort of tweak that a little bit. And again, if it is too hard and you get a critical success, now you fucking vat shot him through the eye or something. But anyway.
Yeah.
Grant, why don't you hit us with another one of our little cues
Absolutely
there? And I guess I should have said off the top, because I jumped into this thinking, forgetting that there could be some new friends in our chat as well. We're talking about Fallout 2D20, the RPG.
Yeah.
It's a role-playing game by Madivius Entertainment, and it's in the Fallout world, and it's really fun. So go check it out in all the links. Fun. And we've got 2 seasons with like 100+ hours of show. So go check it out. Anyway.
This is by far the best and most loved creative project of my entire life, hands down.
It's easily the best Fallout show that we've ever made.
Yeah, exactly. Until the new Fallout show comes out.
Yeah, exactly. Grant,
the system is very accessible. I will say, so I took some questions from Ryan. Shout out to Sam Sendel and Michael Dabowski for sending in some of the questions. Some of these questions I don't have names for. I tried to organize them by theme. So we've got setting, we've got mechanics, we've got loot. Always popular questions in games like this. So one of the questions here will go from settings. When you're starting a new campaign, Overseers, with new PCs, and you've got a different setting what the players are used to, talk about how you set the stakes and how you determine how and whether choices matter for a larger scale than what the players are operating in.
Interesting. So, like from a world building sort of
it's like
perspective.
In the setting you're in, sort of talk about scale and scope, like what kind of background events are happening versus what the players are living in the moment. How do you tie them together?
Yeah, that's super interesting, actually.
Can you go first on this one? Because,
What's that? Did you interrupt me to tell me to go first?
Robert,
I think he did.
First on this one?
Okay, yes, he did. Yes, he interrupted me to tell me to go first.
No, I'm lagging, actually, right now.
I think we've got a slight Justin Moose lag is all, but that's all right. It happens. I think that's interesting because like there's an interesting balance in RPGs, or at least there can be, because when the characters, the thing that you're doing, right? It's the characters' lives. For all intents and purposes, they're the main character, right, of the story that you're telling. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're the main character of the world, right? for our first season, for example, it was very much not main characters in the world. We were, or the guys were, you know, a small group doing a small thing. Then it ended up having larger ramifications on sort of
Yeah.
the area that we were playing on as a whole. At least for me, I've always enjoyed sort of telling that kind of story, where the player's actions aren't necessarily felt as a ramification on the day of. You know, there's so many moving parts, when you think about a world, right, and how big it is, to have every single thing that your players do impact everything is, depending on the scale of the game you're playing, might not make sense. So I think it again comes back to telling sort of the honest story that your players tell. Like, it would be weird if, like, it would have been weird if in our first season the Brotherhood of Steel showed up, right, to help the guys build the caravan. That wouldn't have quite fit. Now that they're in Kansas, fucking around with vertibirds and all kinds of weird stuff, yeah, maybe it might make sense that you know, that sort of thing could start happening. So for me, I always try to balance it on player impact. That was a long-winded way to get around to saying that, you know, letting them feel that what they have impact on is their lives, and less so probably the mechanics of the world, but that they have agency to do what they want in their lives around that mechanics of the world. And in Fallout, it's perfect because there's like fucking no rules at all. It's like the end of the world, so you can go to town. Yeah, when it comes to the sort of the larger impact, I tend to scale it down and sort of let things escalate, right? Start where the biggest impactful thing you're going to have is on you. So have the players' actions impact them, um, not so much on, you know,
Not out into
yeah,
the
the
world.
nebulous, you know, machinations of government, right? It feels more
The
perfect
sinister
that way.
cabal.
Yes, which can be fun, but it depends on the story you're telling.
Yeah.
That is me.
Oh,
What about you?
So going off of what Reverend just said, I've always been a huge sucker for like C-list heroes. Like in our offline campaign for D&D, we are dipshits. Like we are not really even heroes. Like I love the concept of in the first season of Fistful of Neutrons, we were kind of just dipshits doing stuff. Like our big quest was to get a caravan set up, which is not a huge heroic thing to do, which I loved. I loved that the stakes were like so low we could kind of fuck it up and still be good, you know? That moving into Kansas, um, I wanted to put them into a place where they weren't the focus, that there was a already a structure, a social, like a government, like a power. Like they've been in prison like 2 times now
Yeah.
for doing dipshit things, like, or not even, like sometimes I just did it because I wanted to, but like that was the whole thing. I didn't want to make them unempowered, but I also wanted the players to feel like you're not in fucking charge here, man. Like,
And that can be kind of not to interrupt you, but like expand on that, because that could be a tricky thing.
yeah, I didn't want to disempower my players from like having player agency and be
'Cause
worried
that's
about like
never fun for anyone.
that's never fun as a GM to be like, no, you don't get to do that. Like, oh, congratulations, you're dead.
Right.
But I definitely wanted them to feel level 7 or whatever they were at the time, level 5. Like you aren't like going up against fucking Ember. Like you guys got the shit beat out of you for that.
Very
We did.
difficult.
Like,
Yeah.
and
We
that's
did
kind
that
of what
twice and almost lost twice. Long
yes,
story.
yeah, we lost the first episode of
We
that,
had to refilm that. Yeah.
and they won that one, and then I let them like continue, like I didn't change anything, and I let them do it again
We almost
with the
lost work.
knowledge,
Yeah.
and they almost fucked it up again.
Yeah.
But like I definitely wanted not to be like the whole we're the saviors of Kansas. Like there are things happening behind the scenes for the players in season 2 that they don't know about, which I kind of spring on you sometimes, which I love, where you're like, oh, well, like Grant, you tried to fucking wire a like AI bird uh who was programmed by like the virtuoso of AI technology, and like your hubris just got a big middle finger, like, but you still got something out of that. Like I definitely wanted to tell the story of like a C-list hero, like someone who kind of just shows up and is trying to do like the best thing that they possibly can. For all of our for all of our watchers at home, one of my favorite novel series is called John Dies at the End, and it's literally about like a middle class, middle-aged dipshit hero, and it's an amazing series of novels. And so that's kind of what I wanted, like not a superhero, but also not someone who's completely incompetent. Just some, like our party are just some guys doing stuff, and I think that's what brings a lot of heart to the story.
Do you have any tips for if somebody were to be sort of crafting? Because Justin went extra on Kansas as a setting, obviously, in the best ways possible. For someone who's sort of crafting a bespoke, to use a fucking bougie, snotty $5 word,
A $5 word, yeah.
making a bespoke Fallout setting with a vastly different sort of political system than we've seen. Would you have any like tips, tricks, what not to do's in developing a unique world?
What I would say
For
is
Fallout?
start slow and start small. And as your players make decisions, you follow them and expand in that area. I kind of messed up in this one in like building a world, and like 90% of it you're never going to see.
But I think
But that
that's a pretty common DM problem,
Yeah.
though. Yeah.
so what I would say, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't like not build the world, but I wouldn't put so much lore into stuff that you're never going to see. I would like build the world, and then as the players move through what they find is interesting, because it's a player driven story,
Right.
you build the lore around that. Because I had this idea in my head, oh my God, this is Kansas, baby. And then my players did stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. But on the other side of that, the greatest thing that we did for this second season was the Quiet Year. The Quiet Year was amazing for me as a DM to know what my players wanted to see, what they created for themselves, what their like motivations were. It was fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah,
And I threw out half of my story after the Quiet Year because it wasn't useful. I just knew my players wouldn't give a shit about it. So that's what I would say. I would say engage them in the world building at the beginning, and then just follow their story and build narrative around their story.
Great.
I can dig that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Grant, what else you got for us, buddy?
All right, so we'll switch gears. We'll talk about some game mechanics things.
Okay.
One viewer asked, any idea how to do large-scale battles in 2D20? For example, the attack of Diamond City by super mutants. Large-scale battles.
Yes. Yeah, there's actually a mechanic in the game. Grouping enemies, I believe, is the name of it. That sounds right to me in my head. And oh, look at that. I just got the music going. Ha, finally. 20 minutes into the stream. Half an hour into the stream. Yes, so there is actually a mechanic in the game that can allow you to group enemies together. We've actually used it a couple times, most recently in Home on the Rage, the little three-parter we did. But essentially what it lets you do is take enemies of the same stat type. I think the example it uses in the book is rad roaches. Um, and you group them together and they essentially operate as one large block of a unit. So if you have 3 rad roaches, for example, in the encounter, rather than have one go, one go, one go, you just roll them all at once, essentially. You can split up the attacks and that sort of thing. And it works. It speeds it up significantly, but it can also be pretty fucking punishing. Like you can get really beat up.
Yeah.
Really fucking
Oh, you-
wrecked.
You mean a group of 6 Yao Guai is going to be harder to fight than one at a time?
Yeah, exactly. And because of the way that initiative works, in this game in particular, because there's no what the fuck factor, because you don't roll for it, your initiative just is your initiative. You could have a player go, 6 Yao Guai go, and then the rest of the party go, right? So that's a TPK right there. So there are times when I think it makes sense to do that. Especially the book leans on smaller hordes, right? Like rat roaches, fucking mad mole rats, shit like that. But if you're gonna do it in a big grouped way like that, what we did, or what I've found useful in other stuff as well, is to group stuff like that, and to scale either everything up or everything down, which actually I find is easier, right?
Make the stakes smaller.
Yeah, like make, everything's hit points, cut them in half. It's damage, cut it in half. Because then you're still getting the feeling of like, holy shit, there is a super mutant behemoth and like 40 super mutants. Like that is huge, right? That's a big problem. But then you've got some, you've got your town defenses, you've got your whatever. So now you're able to sort of counteract that. And now you've got this big scary horde of 40 mutants, and all of a sudden, 10 of them die or whatever. It's still super scary, but you feel like you've had an impact, because if you just shoot into the crowd, oh, you dealt 4 damage to a super mutant.
To a super mutant's left arm.
Yeah, the granularity of the combat doesn't play well for something like that. So you have to abstract a bit, and have fun with it. I would say, like, use that ability. When are you going to have the chance, right, to have a situation like that? So group and slash the stats, make it more fun, make your players feel like they're doing something, right? So fuck it, have them all have 1 hit point apiece. So when your players lob a grenade and it does 6 damage, holy shit, you killed 6 super mutants. Fantastic. Well, that's a lot, but there's 49 more waiting, right?
Or change the narrative as well. Like maybe there's an encounter in Dungeons and Dragons called like the Ratmancer, who is like literally just a rat king.
Sure.
Who's throwing like thousands of rats at you. So like they all have 1 hit point each. If you cast Cloud of Daggers or like Darkness or Fireball, like you're killing hordes of enemies at a time. It makes it feel epic, but at the same time, it's manageable. Yeah, I just jumped in there because I am not the mechanics guy.
And that's good, but that's actually interesting too. Like on a big battle or something like that. Again, depending on the story you're telling, maybe the story isn't you fighting these 600 super mutants crashing the gates. Maybe the interesting story here
It's just the one.
the traitor trying to make it out of the gates, out the back gate of Diamond City, and him and his caravan get ambushed by 3 mutants on the way out. And,
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
there's this. You're telling the cacophony of the Diamond Gate City gates coming down in the background, but there's just these 2 guys fighting.
But your story is just this person
super
trying to get
mutant
the
horde,
fuck out.
right?
Yeah.
So there's different ways to manage that too, right? Depending on who your heroes or who your characters are. They don't, maybe they're not leading the charge to fight the gates. Maybe they're just trying to like bust out the back door so we can get the fuck out of here, man.
Yeah.
Something that has crossed my mind about sort of big battles too would be some sense of time urgency, and the sort of like granular objectives that the party themselves can accomplish. So if you picture, like, this is not Fallout 2D20, but like Helm's Deep, right? Okay, well, now the players have to get to the little door on the side of the big tower.
Yep.
If they can blow the horn in 12 turns or less, then they can call for reinforcements or whatever. And like, there's a couple enemies on the way through their, however they want to get to do those things. But yeah, they are not aware. Like, if you've ever been in a massive brawl, I hope most of you haven't been, but you really can't pay attention to all that much. It's like you are aware that you're in the middle of something bigger than you,
Tunnel
but
vision,
kind of,
Yeah.
your tunnel vision goes
absolutely.
in. There's like the 2 or 3 people ahead of you, and you're almost not even able to pay attention to what's happening behind you unless you're really cool and calm and you can like look around a bit, but you're not paying attention to 400 people at once. It's just, you can't. So
Yeah.
I like that.
All right. So the next question here, I'm going to bundle 2 up into one. And the idea is, how do you speed up shopping? This is sort of the bane of tabletop games. So this
Oh
one
my
questioner
God.
says, right now I'm using a loot table from an online resource. I tell the players how many of whatever it is the trader has. They spend a long time deciding who gets the left
Do it
leg leather
offline.
armor.
Do it offline, baby.
Right. Who gets the
Do it
right metal
offline.
arm.
Yeah.
So do it
Do it
offline.
You send them the resources ahead of time. You say you have this much gold. We're not spending, because what you have to remember is, like, we're adults playing a game. It's just a game. This is our free time. We have real life minutes. So, like, while they're sitting on the crapper or doing anything else, like, you send them the table, you say you have this much gold, and when you show up, or just text me, and at the beginning of the, like, obviously not in a show, but even in this show, I would say, okay, we went to the market and this was bought. See you later. Grant can attest to this. I had such a fucking meltdown about like spell components.
Yes.
And like we call it tiny tarts.
Yeah,
I don't want to
tiny
fucking buy tiny tarts to cast my spells. I just want to cast my spells. So like just on the offline, that's all I'm gonna say about it. Like,
I mean, that's kind of the golden fucking rule there. Yeah, I mean, like, it's tricky though too, right? Because like the whole bartering shopping experience, it's like it's pretty integral to
if it's narratively important, like when Johnny wanted to get the fucking like new suit of metal armor and stuff, and like it's gonna change his character fundamentally. But if you're just buying ammo or like getting shit,
if it's
like
pretty benign stuff, or like, and like it also depends on the situation too. Like if you know that your players are like, if you're in a town, you know it might come up.
If it's a bottle episode, if it's a downtime episode, absolutely go shopping, but make that the story. But the story is always like, I don't want to play fucking Excel like spreadsheet manager.
Right, yeah. And
I want to play the game.
That's the big one, right? Like offline when you can, right? Like so I'm pretty sure that if they're using an online loot table, I think this is one of the ones we got from the Facebook page. if you go, and I'll drop the link in the chat right now for anyone who may be not part of the Modifius forums, but if you go to the Modifius forums there, and in the Fallout 2D20 category, you can find lots of player resources for loot tables, merchants. They're really cool sheets that are really, really in depth. But again, Fallout probably too in depth. They're super handy. Print them off, send them to your players in between sessions, or have a couple handy for like I've got a couple that I've made when we were doing season 1 that was like random trader, junk dealer in town, and then like weapons guy kind of thing or whatever. And I just had those just kicking around if you run into a random encounter, something like that, or to give your players in between the game. And like Justin was saying, yeah, if you're doing shopping, because people love their gubbins and their fucking things.
Yeah.
You want to get your caps and you want to spend.
If you want to do a fucking interlude,
make it interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah.
Make it part of the story. Like, you go to the place to get the thing made.
Make the interaction not about the McGubbins, right? Because they're going to get the gubbins. They're going to get the fucking gubbins. And
they're going to get the gubbins.
And then they're going to go and they're going to fucking have fun. But it's a cool story.
Mr. Microwave and his fucking flamethrower. This guy would not shut up about getting fucking flamethrower fuel.
Yeah,
so like
3 episodes.
Exactly. But then we make it part of the story of you getting the flame with the fire geckos and the everything. Like
so satisfying.
You make it part of the story because your players aren't there to like do fucking Stardew Valley shit. They can do that on their own. They're there to like play with you. So which
can also be kind of tricky because like this game does have a lot of that built into the bones of it, right? Like the crafting system and like all that stuff. So you can find yourselves going down those rabbit holes, and some players want to, right? And that's fine. But just make sure when you're doing it that it doesn't bog down everyone.
It doesn't bog down the story or the time. Yeah. And like just remember, like
one person at the table.
You have 4 hours to play with like adult people. Like, let's get this shit going.
Yeah. Next time if you can.
Yeah, I would I would say again, mirroring what has been said here to some extent, it depends on the group, but part of what bogs it down is when there's too many choices. So if players feel like, man, this whole book is purchasable, which one of these million things do I want to analyze and figure out is the best for me or whatever? Don't give them infinite options. So one thing that I've done, I feel like it has worked, is print off, like if you're in person, print off a physical piece of paper. It's small, find pictures on the internet. It doesn't have to be fancy, and just have a picture of the thing and a little description of what it is, what it costs. If you have 5 of those things, there's 4 players, or maybe there's 6 or 7, not so many things that it's overwhelming to pick. And then put a time limit on. Say, you have 10 minutes real time. Countdown starts now. Do you want any of these things? Are you selling any of your things? And then it's like, now because there is some urgency and there's not an infinite array of choices, and players can sort of look at something physical and hold it. Or if you're playing only online, send a little image, PDF, whatever, so that they're not leafing through 40 books. Because if that's the kind of shopping you want, you can't really do it in person.
I love Grant's little story there, because it has happened where we've gone in our D&D game where it's like you have 7 options. And what I love, because I play a dipshit bard, is being like, what can I use with this that's going to synergize with my bullshit to break the game? And then I'm just like, this is all I want. That's the thing that I want. And it becomes fun later. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the answer to pretty much every question when you talk about it and boil it down long enough is, what do your players want to do?
Yeah, what do your players want to do? Right? Do they want to shop? If your players want to shop, then let them shop.
And that can be tricky because if you've got 4 different players, you've got 16, or you've got 8 different attitudes, right? Because you've got the real human and then their character,
and then their character, that they're playing.
You're dealing with a lot of personalities,
right?
Anyway. And everyone's got main character syndrome.
on the point of what the players want, let's switch gears and let's go back to talking about campaign settings. One question here is their group is about to start a Fallout campaign. What advice would you give about balance, about skills and perks, and how to go about getting each player's character kind of set up so that they are complementary to the other players?
You go first.
Okay. First off, I would say don't care about party synergy. Party synergy to me is kind of like table talk. The way that I like to set up my games is like just letting people choose what they want to be in kind of a vacuum. And like with the setting and everything, like I said before, keep it small and manageable. They're level 1 heroes. They're in whatever RPG game. If you're just starting new, they're level 1 heroes. Start them off with something very manageable. Go save a missing kid. Go like figure out who poisoned the well. Like something very, very small. You meet in a tavern works for a reason.
That's true.
It's because it's not overwhelming. It's not too big. And for like the whole player synergy thing is I've always found that players who build a character that they care about put something of themselves into that character. They play it as themselves. Like Yuri is very much a huge part of me. I love Yuri. And like I didn't start from the what's going to be the best synergetic mix for when we got on that group call at the very beginning. We all just said, who do you want to be in this? And like we all just chose our characters, and we didn't say like, well, who's going to be the tank, the healer, the cleric? Like we don't even have a tank really. So I find that to be a little bit too out. The whole point of role-playing games is to be role-playing. So just like let your characters decide who they want to be and don't care. And then yes, keep it small. Keep something. Their first mission is achievable. It's manageable. And then it launches into the greater quest or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think like the synergy kind of stuff, like it kind of just happens in a lot of ways, right? Like when folks are just kind of getting together, I don't know in like all the campaigns and all the stuff we've ever done, I don't know that we've ever sat back and been like, okay, who's gonna be the
exactly.
It kind of just happens in a lot of ways. I mean, a small party can be tricky, right? I mean, it's interesting, like if like this question in particular, 3-person party, like where we do 3-person campaigns, right? So it can be interesting because, you know, you're gonna find duplicity. Like I think when we were doing like our session 0, like character building, like I think kind of by accident, no one was really paying attention. I think both Yuri and Johnny took like lockpicking skills, and and we noticed it while we were doing it. We were like, oh, you guys both have lock, and like we had like a quick discussion while we were doing it, like, oh, should we get one of you to like switch around? We're like, you know what? Fuck it. Like we've already done the thing. Like, why would we spend the time now at this point? And like it hasn't really come up in a lot of ways. And like because of how the system works, especially with Fallout, like you can help each other out, right? So having 2 players who have the same skill isn't actually a detriment. It's actually a good thing in this system, because like if you come across a difficulty 5 terminal that you have to hack and
assist,
you need to put your
exactly
and crack this thing. So
like just Yuri over Johnny's shoulder being like, do you really think that hold on One
Totally,
moment,
right?
please.
So I would say to Justin as well, to his point, don't worry about focusing on it. Your players will they will focus in it.
They'll
on
figure
it
the
all on
they'll
their
figure
own.
it the fuck out.
They'll figure it the fuck
And
out, right? And like even if they decide, even if one guy builds a stealth lockpicking build or whatever, and through to session 24 decides, I want to be a hacker now. All right, well, fucking dump some points into hacker and away you go. So yeah, and again, it's not a bad thing to have some overlap and some multiplication of skills in this game in particular.
also, I'll say really quick, really quick. We've learned from video games that respecking is fun. And like,
Yeah.
give them the option. Make it expensive if you want, but like, give them the
Sure.
option to respec.
Yeah.
Like, or if they want to play a different character, they want to retire a character and bring a new character in. Grant is great at that. Is like, it's if you don't want to play this character anymore, retire him, bring him in. Like,
Yeah.
no big deal.
I mean, because again,
You're
that
there to play with your friends.
comes back to that. What do your players want to do, and find a way to scratch that itch in some way. Like maybe you find an abandoned auto dock in an old fucking hospital that you can go into, and it restats all of your specs, but there's a consequence, right? You now, instead of 5 damage to take a critical injury, now it's only 3 because the rebuilding of your bones may give you fucking bird bones and shit. I don't know. What
Yeah,
do you
totally.
want to do?
Yeah.
Scratch the itch, satisfied in some way.
All right. So a question then from the kind of, this is sort of halfway between mechanics and settings and feel. Thoughts about battles where there's a map and minis versus theater of the mind.
You want to go first?
Like, first of all, I mean, as you can see by this wall of nonsense behind me, minis, always minis.
Always mini.
There's an immersion factor that, like, having a map and a table and a little guy and a dragon monster, like, it's fucking cool. Like, it's what we all wanted when we were kids but couldn't afford or couldn't engage with because we would get the shit kicked out of us or whatever it was, right? Theater of the mind, like that, it's fun, right? You get to do
It's fun.
you get to do the thing.
You
It's
just
also
get to
not
do
that
the damn
accessible.
thing.
Yeah, it's, you might not always have the chance to do that. And you know, when you're setting up a table and you're setting up all your gubbins, depending, you might have pinned yourself in a little bit, right?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah,
if you
that's
don't
what I was
have
gonna
the
say.
golden dragon model to bring down, well, why you know, oh shit, I want to introduce a gold dragon or whatever it is. So theater of the mind is just that, right? Like, you can tell a really cool, vivid, interesting story by telling the story, right? But there is something to show, don't tell.
Yeah.
If you're not able to go full bore, some sort of visual something is a nice hook to have for your players, even if it's or some sort of extra sensory thing. If it's theater of the mind, some background music, right, on your iPhone on the table going with something there, or like a GM screen with a cool, you know, picture, or maybe you're in the living room with your friends and you put on fucking Helm's Deep in the background.
Yeah.
when you're
You
doing
make it
something like
thematic.
something to engage your players more, even if you're just doing theater of the mind. Something to give them a little sprinkling of fairy dust is always
Yeah.
a little bit nice. It kind of shows as a GM that, like,
You put
you
the
give a
thought
shit,
into it.
right? Yes. Yeah, that you wanted to put a little extra something in it, and like, and your
Little
players,
zhuzh.
yeah, your
Little
players will appreciate it, and like, guarantee, nobody's gonna go, that motherfucker went too far. Like,
Just go to the butcher shop and get a gallon of blood and spray it all over your gaming room before the game.
I've got a rule of thumb for this a little bit is on like if it's a narrative battle that you've put like a battle for the Hoover Dam, make it minis, make it tactical. That was a solid thing in your story that you knew what was going to happen.
right.
If it's something like less like narratively important, if it was something more like improv, or a guy starts a fight at a bar,
Sure.
Johnny, then do it theater of the mind. Like then you can have fun. Like guns can come in, like Dorman Guns comes in and does stupid shit. You know what I mean? Like, but if it's something that's like very important to the story, and you've like planned out, then absolutely make it solid, make it tactical, make it important, because then the players feel like they're part of it, like they're actually doing something. Grant has a wonderful mechanism to do this. He sent me a letter from my like in-game sister that he wrote out himself,
Mailed across the country.
like mailed it across one of the second biggest fucking country on the planet to me. And so like if it's gonna be like that kind of thing, make it like tangible for them. But if it's just some fucking like by the road encounter, have fun with it. Theater of the mind.
Totally, right? But like handouts, like on that, really cool. Like same sort of thing. Anything like Grant was saying, item cards, that sort of thing. Again, in the Fallout forums on the Modifius forums. Sorry, for Fallout 2D20. There's been some really cool community stuff. Like people have made item cards with all your weapon stats and shit on it. So some really cool things out there that again you can use to sort of bring some of that immersion into
Also,
your games, because a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah. I see Sam Sendell here saying my players forcefully requested maps and minis for a Winter of Adam campaign. Cue me trolling Essie for a damn gigapede. Well, son, are you ready for a fucking gigapede? Like, like your players.
Mini, actually, Sam, check out the Ravaged Star from the guys at Mini Wargaming. Their newest release of like Tyrannid stands in models has like a fucking centipede looking thing, I think, in it. Pretty cool PVC minis, and I think they're pretty affordable. So check that out. That might be in the gigapede sort of thing. And kind of on that, while I'm talking, because there's been some interesting releases recently for the game, which kind of snuck under the radar. Maps, you mentioned there. There is now out the it's a map pack. It's a poster-sized book with Fallout 2D20 maps. It's from Modifius. It's a vault, like it's a vault. You open it up, you go through the vault, do all the things, and there's a quest adventure in there as well. So if you're looking for some maps and things, they're not Winter of Adam. It's their own separate thing, but it's pretty cool to see. We've got like some official maps and shit now. And now there's 3 other one-shot adventures as well that you can buy, which are pretty cool. And then this new Settlers book. So there's all kinds of cool shit coming out, which is really, really kind of neat. But that map pack in particular is really cool. I hope we see more of those. So I wanted to mention that because it's really neat. And I think we're probably going to run that adventure at some point because it's a vault dive. That's going to be super fun.
You read my mind. One of the questions here was, are there a lot of published adventures for this?
Well, damn.
And what are they like? So yes, there's a couple, and more every couple of months, it seems.
Yeah, and they actually just added one of the newest ones, like Deserts of Snake Canyon or something. I don't know. But it's set in the West Coast, which is the first like fucking
The left coast.
yeah, the left coast. And in the new Settlers Guidebook, NCR is an origin option now. So there's
Cool.
been a lot of like, because everything's been all very Fallout 4 Commonwealth East Coast centric, there was a lot of, when are you beginning to do New Vegas? Now they're doing it now. Shut
They're
up.
doing it now.
Yeah.
OG Fallout. Fallout
Yeah.
1 and 2, motherfuckers. That's
Right
where
up.
I grew up.
You can go and do it right now. The most recent one shot is it's got snakes on the cover. It's a deserty one. It's all set in the NCR. So there you go. You can go do it. Play it right now.
One
You got any
related
more for us,
question.
Grant?
Oh yeah, I have one related question. Then I have two more at least.
Okay.
The related question is, and I'm gonna read between the lines on this question a little bit. I hope whoever authored this doesn't mind. If you're going to start a campaign or a scenario that doesn't take place in the Commonwealth, how would you advise DMs to establish a setting in their neck of the woods?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to go
similar
first?
like we were saying there, you know, the world building stuff can be big and can take on a life of its own. If you're like doing a new setting, a pretty popular thing that seen a lot of folks do in groups is, you know, Falloutify your world, right? You know, take what you know and Fallout it, right? If you've got like a cool landmark or like a stadium or, you know, something that's got some interest to it, like an old pre-war fort or something like Revolutionary War or some shit. What would happen to that building in the post-war, in a Fallout world? Maybe you don't, you know, do, you know, Toronto Fallout because that's pretty specific, but maybe you can take things from, you know, your own daily life. What would your university look like? What would happen to it if it got Falloutified? Or fuck it, Fallout Toronto. What happens? Rad Moose running around. So that's
fucking hold on a second. TM. I'm writing down Rad Moose.
Yeah. So that's one popular thing I've seen folks do is, you know, Falloutify, take what you know, right? And because a lot of people worry about, you know, lore busting and like all those sorts of things. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just take your own. See, there you go. Sound Waves Go says having some fun with Fallout the ATL. There you go. Which I guess is now canon in some ways because Fallout 76 is doing an Atlantic City thing now.
Wait, I think he means Atlanta, not Atlantic City.
Oh, that's right. Those are two different places, aren't they?
Fallout Atlanta would be insane.
Fallout Atlanta, Atlanta, Georgia. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's like Fallout Florida, and they all look around and say nothing has changed.
Just the trailer for GTA 6.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
For for my world building, I would absolutely echo what Reverend has said. So for our first season, we did sit around and talk about where this is going to be set. We did talk about Canada for a hot minute, but we didn't think that like there's not a lot of like y'all don't know about Canada. No one gives a shit.
Weird. I've never liked the idea. People always like, what about full Canada? I'm like, fuck off. I live here. It's boring enough as
it's boring. No one cares. We wouldn't go full Fallout. Like, we just wouldn't.
We're too busy.
So, but we did talk then about like, because we all grew up in Alberta. In Alberta, Canada. And like, what's the closest approximation to a state would be like literally like Colorado. So that's why we decided like Colorado, it's right next to the Rockies, like Denver, like Boulder.
Yep.
Yeah, like we know the place. Like if you want to make it like homey to you, just make sure you know like I've never been to Kansas. I drove around it when I was a kid, but I did a lot of research like because I wanted it to be in Kansas. So like do your research, know what's up. And in the quiet year, we literally drew up like maps and everything to be like, okay, where is like, okay, Kansas City, Missouri's here, like Dodge is over there, like make yourself do the research for
Yeah.
it. But if you want to make it in your backwoods, like follow fi your life, like
Follow your life. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you're gonna go that way, exactly that, just Google the place you want to do. And like within a couple minutes when we were doing Quiet Year, we were looking up like, oh, what's fucking cool in Kansas? And we're like, oh, wicked, train museum. Perfect. That works
Yeah.
for the train-based raider
Totally.
gang we're developing. Like shit like that will fall into your fucking lap. I promise.
it will fall out into your lap.
Yay!
You got there. All right.
Okay,
This was
got a
couple more,
question.
man. How many, let's
Yeah.
let's put a bow on this. How many we got?
We'll do 3 more.
Okay.
How do you handle power creep and giving players powerful gear?
Don't.
Come on, give us fat boys. I want fat boys.
Yeah, that's actually a good one. It's tricky with this game in particular. We've kind of discovered after 2 seasons now that we kind of didn't level up quite properly, or at least gear wise.
We have been stalling on gear,
underpowered,
which has made the story better.
I think so as well, but it kind of happened by accident because up until the release of the, I think, Winter of Adam book, it didn't really address, like I said, like a lot of the sort of challenge rating, encounter development stuff. So in that book, it now tells you that depending on, I think by the time you're level 10, your characters should have like 3 damage resistance to everything and be pretty fucking tanky. And looking at our stats after the fact, I was like, oh, we are in fact underpowered. But that could be okay. Because
I think actually we've made the like our game better.
It's been pretty balanced because of that, I think. And it has led to us having to make some tweaks of like encounters early on before this sort of challenge rating, which is here now, and it works is the good news. But it can be tricky early on. My one big piece of advice would be careful with shotguns. They can be really powerful at lower levels because they have spread and
Vicious,
bleed,
I believe, like
you can do a lot of damage really quick. One shot can do like a lot, can take your player out. So be careful with shotguns early on. It can be tricky because they're like, oh, a shotgun, it's a good entry level weapon, right? And it is, but what I would say would be limited on ammo, right? Because ammo is a mechanic in the game. Give a bad guy like 1 shot with a double barrel, and then he's out of juice, and then he's got to switch to coming in with a knife or something. So be careful of really strong guns at lower levels. Soundwave Ghosts, he's got it right there. Shotguns are nasty in a luck build. Yeah, definitely. Because you can swap out some serious damage. Power armor can be tricky. Just wait.
Wait. I honestly
level 10.
On power armor, like everyone wants to get power armor. That's an end game thing. That is a chalice moment when you get power armor.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Like
if you're playing like a BOS campaign or something, that I could see that being tricky because there's dudes with power armor around. Well, I don't really have any. Well, you're a fucking scribe. That's why.
Yeah, you're a dipshit. You haven't fucking leveled up. Yeah.
So like make it, make it something, make it the goal if that's the case, right? Because you're gonna get that player. If I were playing in a regular just hanging around campaign, I would be power armor right now. I would be that guy. I would be the BOS scribe trying to get my initiate trying to get my fucking power armor suit. That would be my end game goal.
we've had this in even the offline conversations, like Grant giving him a ghillie suit took a long time, and I was like, you need to relax. Like, I'm gonna give you
the suit.
I'm gonna give you a silencer and a ghillie suit, but you can't have it right now.
And then the second we get it, I get to go inside where neither of them will matter.
Pretty much, yeah. but that's an interesting thing too, though, is that like that can be part of like just like Grant's wanted a silencer for like a season and a half. Like that can be the goal. Let your characters work towards it, right?
Yeah.
Like you need the parts, you need the workbench, you need somebody who knows how to put it all together. Like that can be like that
part of the quest.
Power creep can be part of the story, right? Like power creep.
Just don't give it to them. Like,
make
power
them
creep is
get
not
it.
just
You walked right into it. Yeah, exactly. Don't give it to them. Make them go get it. And make it an attainable thing, right? Like there is power armor in this world. If that's all you want to do, fine, go find it. But like
make that the quest.
It's gonna take you a minute, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Ice Scorpy, will we see an evil campaign?
We will now. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Ice Scorpy, like,
evil
dude,
campaign.
Even my friends know I can't play evil.
Yeah, Justin can't play that campaign.
I cannot play evil. I tried to play the Dark Urge in Baldur's Gate, and I ended up being the good Urge.
Yeah, you ended up playing
like,
a hero. I was so upset at you.
I tried to like start a evil Dark Urge campaign. I was like, nah, I can't do this.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm not doing
He
this.
starts the neckbeard, like angry edgelord. That's what I'm looking. He starts the edgelord playthrough, and then ends up playing a superhero. I was very mad.
No, I don't know, man. Like, I can't play evil. Even
it's hard.
And we can talk about what's his name? Fucking Titus. Titus started as an evil character in one of our offline games. Like, Titus is before we even started the show. Titus was like a legionnaire, like a badass motherfucker who like dogs ate all of his enemies, and he's like, I'm like the worst. And then I got like, he's part of my story, so like now he's a hero. I just
and then you gave him like a wife and 2 dogs. You fucking suck.
Like I can't play evil, man. I just can't do it.
It would be pretty cool. Like when you said that, Scorpy, immediately I was like, oh yeah, Enclave would be fun.
Can we play it like sarcastic evil? Like we're evil,
kleptomaniac evil,
Yeah.
Sassy comments, evil.
Or could be like the Enclave don't think they're evil, right? The Legion don't think they're evil, right? Like they're like,
they crucify people. They know they're evil.
You go talk to them about it. They seem confused.
No, I'm not going anywhere near.
So that's a hard maybe on the evil campaign.
I think there's a way to do it, and I think there's a way to do it where it's not just edgelord shit, right? Where it's not just like,
I hate that.
Like, you belong on a cross. Like I think there's an interesting way to tell a Caesar's Legion story. In fact, we've kind of done it. That's where Titus came from. In a long-winded universe ago. But yeah, I think that's fun to explore, and I think that's a really cool idea.
I'm not saying no. I'm just saying I'm going to be the goodest boy of the evil wars.
But like in the same way, like there's like a flip it on its head version of D&D where you're the monsters in the dungeon. And the heroes are coming in trying to take your shit. Like I think there's there's an interesting way to do kind of like a spin on that.
I think we could do a very interesting super mutant
kind of something
like campaign.
It's on the list.
That would be fun.
It's on the list now. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Something to think about.
Last big one I've got here is from Crasboo.
Mm.
How do you like to create your player characters' backstories, and where do you get inspiration?
Oh, wow.
Crasboo notes that they find it easier to create backstory by writing it as if it is their memoirs. And I'll jump in first and say, if you haven't yet, little shameless self-plug, listen to the rifleman's backstory on this very channel. That's how I did it. I sat down one afternoon, and I tried to kind of put myself into the headspace of someone that I in my real life could identify with, but isn't me, but there's overlap, or at least there's some way that I can sympathize with what their headspace would be doing if they were in a certain situation, and then just built on that. But what about Finn and Justin? What do you think?
Rev, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. It's for a pretty like good question. I don't know that I've thought about it all that too much prior to this point. For me, it's like always been about the less so the backstory and more sort of, that's the wrong way to say it, rather than sort of dig deep on the events and build a lot of specificity around it. For me, it's more important of whatever happened, what does it mean now? So because like as a human, Ryan, something bad that happened to me 6 months ago might actually seem like, oh, that was a blessing in disguise kind of thing now, right? So I think like from a grandiose way, we are all just our past collections and experiences lived out through our modern interpretation through this current lens. But actually, the things that happen to you then form who you are now, which is huge and important. That's just how life is. But those things look different as life moves on. So, if your character was in a war way back when, not everybody's fucking jaded when they come out of the thing, right? Not everybody's a grizzled, eye scarred.
Yeah.
Some people were fucking carrying water back and forth.
Some people were stoked about what they did.
Some people like digging holes. Some people were stoked on it, right? Like there's like hindsight's 2020, right? So I like to look at like my character as not just this thing happened, so it makes me feel this way. Right. There's shades of gray in there, right? So I always try to make not like a flawed character, because that can get annoying too, but someone who does have flaws, and that might sound like a pretty small difference, but for me it's the difference between this is what my character would do, and
I'm gonna stab this fucking winch because that's what my character would do.
And it's a difference between like, that's what my character would do, and this is what my character is doing. And you don't need to justify it because it feels natural. So I would say, the gist of that is be mindful of tropes, because they can be both really bad and really fun to lean into. And give yourself the room to let your player grow. Don't box yourself in by your backstory. Just because you're a soldier. My character in our D&D campaign is a hardcore soldier fighting black dragons and shit, and all he wants to do is take care of his family.
I'm his adopted son.
Yeah, all that shit doesn't fucking matter as much. Makes him good in a fight, but on the day-to-day, it's not the most important thing going on.
Yeah. For creating a character, I actually literally started from a person I knew. His name was Yaroslav. He's the dad of one of the girls that I dated. He was a smaller Eastern European man with the the bird's nest. He was capable, but like not, necessarily like
James Bond.
You wouldn't ever think of him as like someone who's gonna step up in a fight. And I started from that. Like I started from like the voice. Hello, my name is Yuri.
Would you say use what you know then?
Yeah,
Is that like
exactly. Like I started off like with someone that I knew, and then like what would happen? And I knew about him. He was a devout Catholic. So then I started to think like, well, okay, like let's expand on this character. Like let's go with this if we're going to like. And the boys know very well, like Yuri, like meandered and expanded in our discussions of like what he should be, like what's going on. But yeah, I think start with someone that you know, that you respect, that you like, that you know very well, that you can emulate them, and then make a fantasy character out of them. Because like Yuri Andropov is a fantasy character.
yeah.
But I love playing the shit out of him. I really do. I think he's like such a wholesome and good like character.
Yeah, and I think like if you know that is the thing with these games too, right? Is that, you know, we put bits of ourselves and we take bits of other people into these things, and yeah, there might be games, but there's emotion involved, and there's, you know, the stakes feel real, and like, so yeah, there's you know, there's the amount of, you know, real feelings and emotions that get put into this fictional characters is
Yeah.
pretty fucking great.
Like from like role-playing games. Like, I know Ryan plays Rowan. I play Barrett Duncade, and Grant is our overseer. Like these are real characters for us. We
Yeah.
love them very, very much, and we get
Johnny
upset.
is a real person.
Yeah,
To me, you know what I mean?
Johnny exists.
Yeah.
So like make these characters real, like make them part of who you are, and you'll play them wonderfully because you know exactly who they are.
Yeah, and that depth too, and like, and that's the interesting thing, is that like what's weird with role-playing games is that like the people like we are now are, like I said, we're the product of 30, 40, however old we are now, years of existence. When you create an RPG character, you take a magical nothing out of nowhere and invent these, like, you know, decades sometimes of stuff. So like it can be tricky that away. So when you're developing those characters originally, you put all this thought and detail into these 40 years of experience. And when you're 40, you forget half the shit you did when you were 20, right? So
Yeah.
like not every like granular bit is going to be interesting. Kyle said a Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back reference in the wild. 20 goddamn points, Kyle, for getting my fictional characters Jay and Silent Bob reference. You're the first person to ever get, that's, my mind is officially blown. That's about as good enough place to end this as any, I think. That was amazing.
Take us out, son.
Play us out. Well, that was it. I think was that all our questions?
All right. Well,
that's all the questions. I want to say just 30 seconds about characters and backstories. Don't forget the characters and the backstories of non-player characters.
Yes.
Because we are lucky as players in these seasons of Fistful of Neutrons, because the NPCs in these worlds feel fleshed out. Also, it's not just the players. Like Yuri feels real, Johnny feels real, Mr. Microwave feels real, but so too do the people that we're interacting with. Like I shot Many Shield's kid in the face with a 308.
Yeah, Ember is real.
She's real.
A real human being.
And when you're making NPCs, you know, the big bad evil guy or whatever, most of the time we don't really connect with bad guys that are just like, ha ha ha, kill the world. Like,
yeah,
that doesn't really land, because they're like, okay,
evil.
well, it's in theater, in books, the bad guys that resonate with us the most are the ones you almost can feel for them. Like you're not 100% of the time rooting for them to lose.
Moriarty, or
Thanos, right?
Thanos, sure, exactly.
Thanos, like, yeah.
You can see that they started off as something else,
Or
and
Kingpin,
you might,
yeah.
Kingpin, sure. Like they're sort of grotesque. I'm thinking like Penguin from the Batman series. Like Penguin's disgusting. That one
Sure.
scene, like he's like,
Where he eats
he's
a
all he
fish.
bites somebody's face and like he's a little lunatic.
Such a good movie.
But there's like, so don't skimp out on the bad guys and the NPCs is
Yeah.
really the point there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you want to make a bad guy like really bad, make him almost likable.
Yeah.
That's
Far
like
more interesting.
if
than-
they are overtly like hateable, then they just become furniture, just something to work around. But if they have a
Unless you players know
lovable,
what to do with them, it's a very signaling that's the bad guy thing, which is good, which can have its use. But yeah, it's not quite as
no, but like no spoilers. Embers,
But, yeah.
Embers, something.
And I mean, but
No
that does also
spoilers.
go into something we talked about earlier too, which was like, yes, do the homework. It will make your story better. Like if Johnny the Traitor has a backstory, even if your players never see it, because again, you're going to go way too hard in the paint on something and make something that your players will never see,
Yeah,
and that's okay. Just
and that's okay. And
will
build
make-
that story.
it
Like,
will make the world better for it, but also don't force Johnny or Jerry the Traitor's backstory on them if they don't fucking care. If they want to know, go for it. But plant the seeds, water the plant.
fuck
and you
that
fuck the
tree.
plant. Yeah.
Awesome. That's it for questions.
That's where
right.
we will wrap it up. Thank you all.
Thank
for
you so
tuning
much,
in.
guys. Thanks for coming for our not show.
Yeah, super laid back. It's super interesting how this happened because I've been kind of thinking about doing some videos about sort of 2D20 game mastering in general, but it wasn't working out. And then Raj was sick. We had the time. Here we are. I think Matt Maglinok in the, if I'm saying that name right, I can never say people's names right in Discord. We were chatting about it in Discord. We had the open time slot. Here we are. It's that easy. So there you go. Thank you all so much. Check out our Discord and all the things if you want to chat down below. I think,
After like this season, we're gonna do another quick one of these just to decompress, see what you liked, see what you didn't like do the whole.
we'll do a season 2 wrap up like we did with the season 1, and then we've got plans for. We're gonna do a couple smaller. We're gonna do like some mini series, and then we'll talk about season 3. But we'll chat because that's all we've got for today. We'll be back. I think we're gonna have one more video before Christmas this week. Gonna have a video coming out talking about all the armor changes for Wasteland Warfare. Big
next
things.
one is our Christmas special.
And then
isn't
Christmas special. Yes, we're
it? I got something.
trying to figure out timing. Don't know if it's gonna be live. Maybe next week. Maybe it'll be a canned show.
Maybe it might be a
It
canned
comes
show,
up
but
live.
I got something for you.
We're still figuring out the timing because Raj is still not able to film right now, but he should be back within the next week or so. So we're gonna figure it out. There will be a Christmas show. Maybe it'll be closer to New Year's. I don't know. We're gonna figure it out. But we'll keep you posted. And another painting stream, I think, on Wednesday to finish Swan. So things are happening. And then we're going to take a break for Christmas because I'm going to be in Newfoundland. So
Yeah, and I'm gonna be taking care of that little spot in his background.
yeah,
So-
Justin's going to be looking after my house while I go on vacation. Much deserved. Anyway, not the point. You guys don't care what I'm doing for Christmas. You've got more important things to do. Love you all. Thank you all so much.
Love you guys.
for hanging.
Always
That was-
wonderful.
Yeah, we're gonna be back in a couple days for a painting stream. So Wednesday. See y'all then. And until then, stay safe and remember, don't feed the algorithm.